The following is a presentation of the Mat Talk Podcast Network.
The BVU Beavercast is proudly supported by alum and two-time All-American Monty Mers and High Country Search. Elevate your search at highcountrysearch.com.
Welcome to the Lodge. It's time to settle in for the Buena Vista Wrestling Beavercast. Join host Jason Bryant and head wrestling coach Jeff Brees as we talk all things BV wrestling. Now, on to the show.
And welcome back to the Lodge. It's episode 23 of the BVU Wrestling Beavercast. Jason Bryant with you with head wrestling coach Jeff Brees, and we're about to start a brand new, well, practice time's already here, so we are starting the new season as practice officially began October 10th for most of the NCAA programs around the country. And we've got intra-squad wrestle-offs that have pretty much been popping up. It used to be a thing a few schools did, but now we've got all these schools doing it, including Buena Vista. And Coach Brees, first of all, it's another fine season in Storm Lake. And two, we've got a big night of wrestle-offs coming up October 29th right there on campus.
Yeah, we're really excited. We have a lot going on around the wrestle-off itself. We do our wrestle-offs more as another excuse to be home and give ourselves another home match, and yet let our team get another opportunity to just kind of wrestle a college match with an official and a crowd before they have to do it for real. We're not going to determine a whole lot about who our starters are going to be and who they're not based off of this. We got some weights where we're matching guys up, two different weight classes, that kind of thing. We just really talk to our guys about, we want to see how they compete, what kind of fight level they're going to bring, and, see who gets a little bit nervous in front of the crowd and who deals well with that, and those kind of things, more so than I'm really trying to figure out who our starting lineup is. We don't wrestle a duel until December 7th, so this is something we're just trying to have a lot of fun with. We have our 1990 team back. We're going to honor them. We're going to have some of those guys be honorary coaches. We're doing a costume contest at intermission, and we have some gift cards and stuff to give away with that. Testing out our intro video and all of the things. It's a tune-up as much for us on the marketing end and the coaching end as anything. And it's probably the most relaxed I'll be at a duel all year, because I actually go and sit in the stands and just let our guys do their thing and watch and enjoy, opposed to most of the year where I am trying to find the imaginary tape line that I'm supposed to stay behind, that I'm never able to stay behind without getting a warning. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good night.
That tape line, you could always do what Steve Martin did when he was a head coach at Great Bridge High School, is have his assistant coach just hold him by the belt loop. And that's all that coach did, was just hold him by the belt loop, because that was a full-time job.
I'm not sure if that would work with our staff, because we seem to have to do it to each other, and then we just kind of move out there in unison. We're both almost on the mat at the same time. So I'm not sure if that's going to work for us. Maybe we should advertise for a job for another manager. It was like, do you have interest in holding small men by the belt? Well, we've got a job just for you. I could probably use that by about mid-season for sure. We might have to work on the wording there, because that came out a little funky. But anyway, as we move forward, I'm curious about this 90 team. Who's going to show up in costumes? I mean, are the guys that you're honoring, are they eligible for the costume contest too? I mean, is Tom Mashik eligible? I don't know if he's eligible, but if I know Masher at all, I'm sure he might be interested. So we'll definitely give him a prize, even if he's not eligible, if he wants to jump on board with that. But it's actually designed for one of our campus organizations. AAUW is actually putting it on. It's something that my wife is involved with, and we had kind of had the idea of wanting to do a costume contest anyway. And so my wife's like, well, our organization will run it for you guys and promote it if you want to do it at wrestle-offs. So kind of a dual thing. We're trying to promote AAUW. We're trying to create a fun atmosphere at our wrestle-off, and since it's Halloween, no better way than a costume contest. Yeah, I'm just curious on how many people are going to show up as wrestlers, because not the wrestlers themselves. Because last year, my costume, I put on a singlet for the first time in like 18 years, and I tell you that it was the scariest costume on the block. Yeah, I'm hoping that we have some people show up in singlets. We went to a volleyball game this year as a team in singlets, so I'm hoping some of the other sports will return the favor, and we'll have some people show up in singlets. And then, all of your traditional Halloween costumes too, I'm sure. But we've had a real fun atmosphere around the whole athletic department this year. I think we actually had the soccer team show up to a volleyball game in volleyball uniforms when they were on the road. They happened to be in the same town together. So, hoping that carries over to wrestling season. We've had a lot of teams supporting each other and making it a really fun atmosphere to compete here. So hopefully we have the same thing tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's the one thing about wrestlers when they show up in the singlets. It's like, it goes back to that singlet versus like two-piece uniform argument that seems to be permeating the world of wrestling even more than it ever has. It's like, you definitely know when the wrestlers show up. Maybe if we went to those the fight shorts and like rash guard type of deal, it'd be less identifiable. Like, oh yeah, those are the wrestlers. Right now, when you're walking in with a singlet, you're like, oh yeah, those are the wrestlers.
Yeah, and we make sure we throw some of the old school singlets back in when we do that too. So we get some of the singlets from back in the early Baxter days, and then some of the singlets from the guys in the 90s and early 2000s. We seem to have quite the collection of old singlets here. So we have a really nice variety, and there's some different styles, so to speak, when guys walk into those events.
Yeah, like the ones with like the leggings and the snaps and the three-piece, like, you could wear them to basically cut weight in.
Yeah, we don't have any of the leggings right now, but we go pretty far back. Some of those singlets are pretty short that we have back in storage.
Well, as we move on, this is part of this is not just honoring the 90 team too. It's Alumni Night where everybody is really welcome to come back and be introduced to the wrestling program. And this is, as you're working into this another year of wrestling, this is our second season of the show, our third season with you at the helm. What are some things that you've learned from the last couple inter-squad events or just having events that bring in the community, bring in the alumni? I mean, is that group growing? I mean, how are people responding to you finally now that you're like, okay, I've been here for a while now?
Yeah, I think it continues to grow a little bit every year. Finding the right time for everybody to get back together at the same time is very difficult. It doesn't always work out that way. But we seem to have a different group of people that can make it back every year. And then they're talking more and more amongst themselves. So the following is growing, even if we don't have them all in the same place at the same time. We're definitely seeing a bigger response rate, more interest in what we're doing. It's funny, we have a lot of people from all over Iowa. So sometimes we have as big of an alum following when we're on the road as we do at home sometimes. Certainly, student-wise and community-wise, we're growing at home, but it's interesting when we're on the road. I've already gotten probably a dozen emails from people that are like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it back for Wrestle-offs, but I plan to see you when you guys are in central Iowa or when you're up in Minnesota, those kind of things. So even if it doesn't get them all back here on campus at the same time, it's definitely having an impact in our fan base everywhere we go.
Yeah, I'm looking at the schedule, and you mentioned Minnesota, and I looked at the schedule. December 10th, you're heading up here to wrestle St. Olaf in Northfield, which is about probably an hour south of where I sit in New Brighton. And I'm sitting there like, all right, yeah, cool, road show. And then this family thing kind of pops up because my wife and I have been trying to get tickets to Trans-Siberian Orchestra for a number of years. And usually it fell like during the Midlands or something where I was traveling. And I'm looking at the schedule, and this is before the BV schedule actually hit my calendar. I'm like, oh, December 10th, and I looked. It's like, okay, I'm not in Vegas. There's no. I'm not announcing the Grapple the Gardens in a different weekend. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's do it. We get the tickets, and then I look at let's look and see if BV's coming up. Crap, it's the same week. It's not only that, it's not like I can double up either. I'm going to the 3:00 show. So the 3:00 duel is pretty much out. So I unfortunately will not be seeing the Beavers at St. Olaf, but it goes to the other things as far as the schedule goes. You're at Platteville. You're back home in Pennsylvania. You hit the Luther. You hit these events. So let's talk a little bit about that schedule. You talked about the fact you don't have a dual meet until December 7th, and that is a home duel against Co. So that first month of the season, we're talking opens again. And how have your philosophy, has it been consistent, or has it changed over the years on what you loading up the schedule with that first month?
I think it is relatively the same, but we always are looking for little tweaks or different ways to do things. And you got to look at what you have on your roster to start the year too. So we knew with 20 freshmen coming in and 28 guys between freshmen and sophomores, we need to see a lot of competition early on. We need to get these guys matches. We got to get them out of the practice room and get them some experience. So we didn't want to jump right into a dual schedule. It was going to be tough to know who our best dual guys were going to be right out of the gate anyway. So we actually moved up our schedule a week. We typically have this first weekend to do some training, but we're jumping into the Platteville tournament right away. It should be great for us because it's all D3 teams. Not a huge event, so you're not going to have that 64-man bracket that you got to navigate your way back through if you lose in the first round. So that was pretty ideal for us this year. The idea to go to Luther never really changes. It's close. Good situation with the freshman division and the open division as well. And then the W&J trip kind of came about because we have just an odd situation with where our finals fall this year and when our J term starts. And so it was tough for us to do a Christmas trip. So we decided we were going to take our returners to Pennsylvania, get them a different look, see some different teams. And then, it's obviously a place that I know pretty well, and it's not a bad excuse to see some family while I'm back home as well. But it really just fell in the right weekend. We wouldn't have been able to do that if it would have been a weekend later or a weekend earlier. So it just kind of was the perfect storm. We get to go somewhere different, see different teams, and I get lucky enough to go home for a little bit as well. So it was just the perfect storm, the right weekend, all of that. And, I know my family's going to be excited to see me, or at least my mom will be. My dad and I probably will be angry at each other before the day's over, but we'll probably get that figured out pretty quick right after the fact. But I know for certain my mom's going to be happy to see me, and I'm going to be happy to see her. My dad and I might have to scrap it out a couple times throughout the day when we're seeing those W&J guys.
Yeah, in case you're unaware with what Jeff is talking about, his dad is an assistant coach at Washington and Jefferson. So there's a family feud, and I'm just wondering, just for conversation's sake, it's over the match with Sonny Boy Blanco. I just love saying that name. One of his kids from W&J was an All-American last year. So so they're going to be in opposing corners at this tournament for sure. That's a definite.
Yeah, 100%, because we actually, with us being in two places that weekend, I'm not taking any of the assistants with me. They're getting a chance to run the show at Luther. So it's just going to be me. So I can't even put somebody else in the corner to avoid it. It's going to be me. And hopefully we have some success, and I'm at least I'm the happy guy for most of the day.
Yeah, as we move forward and talking about the schedule, we've got those tournaments. Then the first home event you can see outside the wrestle-offs will be the BVU Open on December 3rd, then Co, as we mentioned, at home on the 7th. Now, a couple things that have been bubbling and churning, so to speak, in the world of Division III wrestling has been this realignment discussion. And Jeff, coming from Division I, when you're coaching at NC State and at Northern Illinois, you were right there in the era when things were starting to change on the qualifier system there. What are some of the things that you remember from the D1 side of the uproar about the qualifier system that you're kind of looking at this Division III drama about the realignment going, this seems a little similar. We've done this before.
Yeah, so I think I have a somewhat unique perspective on all of this, being that I went to an ACC school. And prior to the change in the qualifying system in Division I, if you went to an ACC school, you pretty much had to win the ACC championship if you wanted to go to the NCAAs. And there were weight classes where there were 3 and 4 guys deep that were really tough that, were all-American contenders, but you needed to win the conference to go because it was based on historical data, how many qualifiers you got. So obviously that system was broken, and good on the NCAA and really Dr. Yao for pioneering and pushing to get things changed. And so it's a lot better in Division I now. You can pretty much earn your way to nationals by what you've done throughout the course of the year. And then if you have a fantastic day and you haven't earned your way there yet, you can go steal someone's spot at the conference tournament as well. So it gives a lot of weight to both sides of that. And I think that might be a direction that we really should look at for Division III. We obviously have the power or the issue with the amount of balance and how many teams are in each region right now. That's an obvious problem that needs to be fixed. I don't think anybody can ignore that or could look at it and say that, well, this is good. There's 20 teams here and 10 teams in another region. That's not good. But there needs to be some perspective as to power and competitiveness as well, I believe. And so I think a way that you can really do that and get away from historical data is to look at going to an RPI and an allocation type system that Division I has. I think there's probably some research and some stats that probably need to be looked at before everybody would jump all the way in on that. But I think it could be a great way to balance everything out, where you get competitiveness, you get some historical thought of power, but it doesn't really take in any historical data. But you know where the teams are that have won year after year after year. They have that doesn't really factor into whether they're in the same region or not now, because you can have more qualifiers if that region's just performing particularly well in a year. So I think that's definitely a good thing. I know when you talk to a lot of coaches, they're not very happy with the region system that we have now. And I would love to say that it's not a great thing, being on the side of the country that sometimes it's a little bit tougher to get there just based on the strength of the teams in our conference. But it's also not fair on the East Coast when there's 20 teams in a region. That makes it pretty difficult to get there too. I just know it wasn't good back before we went to the regional system either. Growing up as an East Coast kid, you could be top 10 in the country, and if your particular region only had one qualifier, or your conference only had one qualifier, and you had two really good guys, guess what? You didn't go to nationals because your conference didn't have enough All-Americans the year before. And so I sat back as a non-D3 person at that time, just watching schools like Waynesburg, Washington and Jefferson, Teal, and going, well, this isn't right. Some of these guys are good enough to be at nationals, and they're losing to the number one guy in the country in the conference final. That's probably not a good thing either, when that guy, the guy that's probably a top 10, top 15 guy doesn't get a shot. So there's a lot of ways to look at it. I think there's been a lot of almost anger about how things are right now. I think probably need to take a little bit of a step back and try and find a really good solution instead of finding the quick, immediate solution. I think everyone knows what the issues are, but there's not an overnight solution to fixing those. I think we need to be proactive to looking towards next season and try and have some concrete ideas in place, so when it is time to vote on that, we get that done.
Yeah, the one thing it seems like if the RPI model, say I don't mind the regional model where it's top three. I really don't mind it because it's worked in Division II, even though Division III is kind of modeled Division I more so historically. But then we go to the RPI model. I think we might have to deconstruct the regions, because that would give you the opportunity to go back to a conference system because it's based on the strength. Now, I think if we have that RPI with a region that floats, I mean, I think the RPI and the three-part system that Division I has, schools like Pacific are really kind of hung out to dry because they don't really wrestle. Actually, they don't wrestle a Division III team in a dual meet on the regular schedule. I think they might hit an event where they might see them in duels, but for the most part, I mean, they've got to wrestle junior colleges and NAIA programs, so they're not getting the RPI points or the common opponents that that's the problem with the reach. The New England schools would, and in the East and then the Central, but there's not that much crossover. At least the national duels expanding to 24 teams has helped, and events like the Desert Duels. But I think the devil's in the details. But I mean, I guess I like the old system with the conference qualifiers, but with that RPI component. But I also like the regional system because all right, every match is to win it. It's not like, okay, I got to go fifth in this weight, I got to go fourth in this weight. I mean, that's the one confusing thing about the Division I factor is even though those are sent out 2-3 weeks in advance, it's still like, okay, well, how many go at this weight? We got 4. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there's something about winning that match to go to nationals too.
Yeah, but it happens. You still get that with the RPI model. And I do like the simplicity of the regional model right now. You got to be top 3. You show up that day, you get it done. But I think you do a lot of wrestling all throughout the year. That should matter some. And right now, it honestly, other than how you feel from day to day, practice to practice, what you get done between November and when you walk into regionals doesn't matter a whole heck of a lot right now. And so that's what I really like about the RPI And the allocation system is that what you've done all year can matter. But you also get that match where if it's you got to win this one to get in the top 4, well, that's your match to go to nationals. That's just as exciting. And I've been on both sides of the fence. I mean, I was in an ACC match just watching that was for true 6th. And it was just as exciting as a championship match because you knew the guy that won that was going on to nationals. It didn't really matter that it was way down in the bracket.
Yeah, it's funny when we see those like, hey, what weight is it? What match is it? This is true 9th. Like, what? I mean, we have created so many more bouts that are just funky. Now, when it comes to the regionals too, you mentioned, the semblance of power, which actually kind of is more historical data because, outside of Augsburg and Wartburg, traditionally the teams that have placed 3rd through 10th have always kind of rotated. I mean, Messiah's on a strong run right now. Wabash has been on a strong run. Whitewater. And, it's going to be a matter of time before another team comes up and then they're going to, I mean, it was Elmhurst a couple years ago and geographically seems to make the most sense. And keeping some conferences aligned seems to make sense to me too. But, some conferences say we have no preference. Some are saying that we have no statement. And then, the New England is pretty much is its own conference and you're bringing in Ithaca over to that particular region. But, where do you sit on the fence in terms of keeping the Iowa conference teams together or saying, all right, it's fine. You can break us up for regionals.
And I don't know that this is the thought of everyone in the conference. It's probably not. I would say we're probably a little bit split on this. But if we're in a regional system, if we're not in a conference system, if we're in a regional system, I don't see the need for us all to stay together. We probably have a better opportunity as a conference to get more guys to the national tournament if we are in different regions. I also think there's a geographic factor in there where there's schools like Nebraska Wesleyan. They probably belong in the West region just based on geography. They're the 2nd most Western Division III school. They probably should be in the West region, but they have the allegiance to the Iowa Conference. They're part of our conference, so they're with us in the Central. And so things like that, I mean, again, you could go into the minutia and the details of all of this, and every coach can come up with a different reason for and against. But I think if we could get to the point where we could factor in some type of allocation system, you have the ability to move around a little bit more geographically, where teams can be a little bit closer to where they probably belong geographically in their region, more so than their conference alignment. And you still have a great opportunity to go to nationals either way, because it's what you've done and what the teams around you have done throughout the year to give you that opportunity. So I don't claim to have all of the details. If I had a perfect plan written, I would probably be submitting it to somebody right now. I just know how well it works at the Division I level. And I know there could be some hiccups in year 1 and 2 at the Division III level, but I really think it's something that is worth exploring, especially in this time where no one's really happy with the setup that we have. So if we're not really happy with the setup we have, we should look and be open-minded and look at some different ideas. That's just kind of my take on it. I know everybody's got something a little bit different that they've proposed, and everyone's certainly welcome to their opinion. And I've been in Division III this is the start of my 3rd year. So maybe I'm not the best voice, but I just know I have different experiences coming from both growing up in the East, having the Division I experience. I think it's something that would work.
And just because I'm a geography nerd, the question is, what's further west, Concordia in Moorhead or Nebraska Wesleyan and Lincoln? It's close, man. I mean, I think Lincoln, Nebraska is slightly more west as far as the what are they, longitude goes. So again, more geography, more weather nerd type stuff from me. So Nebraska Wesleyan, 2nd most Western team in the country. I mean, that's interesting. Speaking of which, they're new to the conference. And Brandon Bradley, a Virginia guy, a guy I've known for a long, long time, since his days wrestling at Henrico High School, They're new to the conference. They're a new program. And, what's it mean for Division III and, the Iowa Conference to have a school like Nebraska Wesleyan with Brandon Bradley as coach? They just hired Rob Sanders, who had a career at Nebraska. So we got new programs everywhere. We're finally seeing some pop up in the Midwest and in Division III, and now they're on the schedule this year. I mean, what's it like to have Coach Bradley and his crew come in this year?
It's awesome to add to the conference. It's awesome to have another team just out here in the Midwest. They're growing a lot faster than us in the East as far as the Division III side of things. So it's great to have another team. I think it makes our conference even a little bit tougher. But that's all right. Well, everybody in our group kind of tends to embrace that. We like that. I've known Brandon for a long time. I've competed against him. I've gotten to watch him coach when I wasn't competing against him when he was in different levels. And it's good to see another good coach coming in to the conference, getting ready to build something good over there. And I think we're really excited to have, for us this year, it's another home match. So, next year when we have to drive to Lincoln, probably won't say the same thing, but for this year, it's another opportunity for a home match for us. And the more chances we can get for that, the better it is.
Yeah, dinner and a show. And also of note, you mentioned that about Bradley. I keep forgetting that there's the tie here because he wrestled in college at UNC Pembroke in North Carolina. So NC State, East Coast guys, hey, it just happens. The paths have crossed. So, but yeah, dinner and a show. Looking forward to that one. February 8th. That's against Nebraska Wesleyan. But we got a lot to talk about between now and then. So, Coach Brees, we're wrapping up episode 23. Wrestle-offs, let's get after it. Let's get the information, the details for those that are listening. Like, yeah, you know what? I want to go watch some wrestling on October 29th. That's a nice Saturday night. Yeah,
so if you need to plan out your Saturday night, you actually start on your Saturday afternoon here. You come watch our volleyball team play at 2:30. But if you need to plan out your Saturday night, 7 p.m., Siebens Fieldhouse. If you can't make it to Storm Lake, we're going to be doing the Wrestle-off on Facebook Live as well. And then we'll embed that and put it on our BVU wrestling page also. So lots of ways to follow, lots of ways to keep track of things. We got a lot of exciting freshmen, so hopefully people come out and check them out.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.